E eu não tô no Wi-Fi. Hello everyone, thank you for coming back. We've had technical problems. I'm Natalia Guerreiro and I'm taking over the line here with our dear ambassador Moretti. Hello, here he is. He's here with us. Thank you everyone for coming back and being so understanding. Hello. Hello, Ambassador, I'm Natalia.
Hello.
Thank you for bearing with us. So you were saying that ICAO, like any specialized agency of the UN, but then that's when it cut off.
Okay. Okay. I'm optimistic that now we're going to be able to move forward. The internet is not problematic only in Brazil. Believe me, it's problematic as well. So don't assume that the problem is on your side. Anyway, so I was saying that that ICAO is the meeting point where governments, member states, come together to agree on principles, rules, procedures to be adopted worldwide regarding international civil aviation. ICAO is not a regulatory body, properly speaking, but it does provide the foundation on which national legislations are prepared and adopted and implemented. But of course, by agreeing on these principles, rules, and procedures, they standardize the operation of international civil aviation, and that's what makes aviation possible worldwide in a safely and orderly manner. And ICAO does that, achieves this mission through the adoption of what we call SARPs, Standards and Recommended Practices, and also PANS, Procedures for Air Navigation. Those, as I said, provide the basis on which countries rely to to adopt and prepare, formulate their legislations. And these, especially the SARPs, they have been traditionally concentrated on safety and security of aviation for obvious reasons. And more recently, it has also been covering environmental issues, as the environmental agenda for civil aviation has been growing in importance. So that's the let's say the main function and mission of the organization, and it does so, or it can do so, through processes that involve bodies in the organization. The organization has, as any other institution, has a structure, a governance system that is comprised basically of the assembly, which is our, like National Congress, where all members come together every 3 years. I'm sorry, to make the fundamental decisions in the organization. All the 193 members participate or can participate in the assembly. Then you have the council, that is comprised of 36 members today, that are elected by the assembly every 3 years. And the council has committees, and the committee has panels. We will talk about panels, I think, further in our conversation. And we have also the Air Navigation Commission, which is fundamental and is the core where the SARPs and the PANs are prepared and submitted to council for approval. So through this governance structure, the organization completes or achieves the mission of, as I said, bringing all member states together to prepare, to adopt these rules and procedures, and therefore allow for aviation to really happen in a safely and orderly manner, and now, as I said, in an environmentally sustainable manner. So that's a long answer to this important question.
But it is very important, and Brazil is one of the members of ICAO, and as such, we live what you were saying. Because, for example, controllers here will probably be familiar with Doc 4444, which is the phraseology manual from ICAO that our MCA emulates and translates, right? And it's a puns. So what you're saying about puns is something that we see every day in our work. So that's fantastic. And like you said, it's not regulatory, right? That's also interesting for English, because ICAO suggests that people have a minimum level of English, controllers and pilots, but it doesn't dictate its own test, right? Each country is free to choose, right?
Yeah, right,
Fantastic. I believe you have covered the second question we had, which was about the aims of ICAO, or would you like to talk a little bit further about that?
Just briefly, ICAO has 5 strategic objectives. As you said, in my answer to the first question, I covered most of them. But just to recap, it's safety, navigation and efficiency, security, economics, economic development, and air transport, and environmental protection. So the only objective that I have not mentioned in my first answer was precisely economic development of air transport. It's unfortunately one area where the organization has not moved as quickly and as far as Brazil wished to move. There's been some reluctance on member states to work on that, because there are several political issues and economic issues associated to that particular field of activity. So it's understandable, but that's one of the objectives of the organization as well.
Great. So lots of parallel objectives, lots of aims. And like we said, Brazil is a member, but what is Brazil's role in ICAO exactly?
Thank you. That's a very important question, and one I think that our colleagues that are joining us today might not be entirely cognizant of. And I think this conversation gives me the opportunity to share with colleagues a sense, a hint of our relative importance, of what we do here, what our role is. So, first of all, you should be very proud of course, of what you do, and very proud of Brazil in the organization, because Brazil is a very important member of the organization. And I don't say this because I'm Brazilian or because I'm the ambassador here, because that's the truth. So just for you to have a sense of Brazil's importance in the organization. Brazil is a member of the council. I told you that there is an assembly, and then there is the council. The council is comprised of 36 of the 193 members of the organization. Brazil is a member of the council since 1947 in an uninterrupted manner. So we've been sitting on the council all those years, and we've been sitting on the council in what we call Group 1 of the council. Group 1 of the council comprises those 11 countries only in the world that are considered to be of chief importance in air transport. And so we've been sitting there for almost, 75 years now. And in the most important subgroup of the council. Uninterruptedly. So this means something. So this means that the world recognizes our role and our relative importance. We've been sitting on the Air Navigation Committee, again, in an uninterrupted manner since 1949. We are of the 11, let's say, most important countries in the Council. We are the only Latin American country among this subgroup of 11 members of chief importance, and we are one of the only two developing countries in that particular subgroup of the Council. So it means something. And again, it's not because people are generous, because countries are generous, but because they recognize our relative importance. And we are the 9th largest contributor, financial contributor to the organization. So the Brazilian government, the Brazilian people who pay the taxes invest serious money in this organization. And our job, or part of our job here, is to, as we say in English, get value for money. To make sure that the investment that the Brazilian people make in the organization in terms of their taxes is, has all the returns that it deserves to have. But our role is, of course, has to be commensurate to that relative importance. And we have been working very hard in all those years, of course, in the Assembly, in the Council, in the Air Navigation Committee, in the panels of the committees and the Air Navigation Committee, to, of course, promote our interests, to address our needs, but also to, and that's a great responsibility, to bring to the organization the interests, needs, concerns of developing countries at large. Because these countries vote for us on the Assembly to be on the Council and has been voting for us since 1949. And we have to return, to give back, if you want, this confidence, this trust with responsibility. So one way of doing that, it's again part of our role, is to making this organization known, and its rules, its principles known to other developing countries. And one way in which we do this is through technical assistance and training. Just for you to have one example, and with this I'll finish my answer to this question. One very interesting project we have now, and it regards languages. So since this live is somewhat related to language, or entirely related to language, we have a very interesting project by which we share with other Portuguese-speaking countries in the world, especially in Africa, that do not have the means, the resources to translate into Portuguese, the phraseology, as you said, all the terms that ICAO uses and the world uses in English, which is the lingua franca, right, of this world of aviation. So we translate them into Portuguese and we share with others, other Portuguese-speaking countries that do not have the resources we have to do that. So it's an important country that is very aware of its responsibility, and that tries to meet its responsibility through several means, including helping others be responsible members of this large community of international aviation.
Yes, definitely. Brazil is regarded as a leader, right? If the developing countries keep voting for us, it goes to show how much they trust Brazilian diplomacy to voice the concerns of developing countries. I didn't know about this amazing project with African countries that speak Portuguese. That's great. That's great to know. But how does the office you work at, Brazil's office in Montreal, how does it work?
Thank you. Another very interesting question. Our delegation here is lucky and very honored to have a team of colleagues that come from the agencies directly responsible for aviation in Brazil, namely the ICAO and ANAC, and also the federal police, who give an important contribution in terms of all issues related to security, which is their basic competence, of course, and also diplomats appointed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Itamaraty. So we make up a very close, united team working in perfect, coordination, both among ourselves and among our bosses in Brazil and in Rio. So, we, each one of us brings to the table his or her own competence, knowledge, experience. We are lucky to have as our advisor Brigadeiro Bertolino, who's with us, and to whom I'm very grateful for all the support he's been giving to me since I arrived here in January. We put we join our efforts to make sure that Brazil is an active actor, constructive actor with initiatives in all bodies of the organization, the political bodies of the organization, as well as the technical bodies of this organization. As we said in the beginning, this is a very technical organization. There are other organizations in the UN system that are less technical, but this one is very technical. And we need competent, knowledgeable people to make sure that our interests and our needs are properly addressed in the organization. And again, we are lucky to have these people with us here in the mission.
Speaking of which, I got a question here. If you have any questions, everyone, please send them through the question box, because then it doesn't get lost in the chat, okay? But I read this one asking, since it's very technical, do you have any air traffic controllers working at ICAO?
We do not have air traffic controllers here, but we have people that know very much traffic control in Brazil, namely Brigadier Bertolino, and Colonel Mauro Carrinha. Colonel Mauro Carrinha is Brazil's commissioner to the Air Navigation Commission, has been doing a fantastic job. And you, more than I, know how experienced Brigadier Bertolino is in airspace control. So, and of course, behind these two colleagues, there is the whole wealth of knowledge and experience in the ICAO, to which we resort constantly to make sure that we have the best information and knowledge to do our job here.
Yes, they're the representatives, right? But there is the whole team behind, and the team of air traffic controllers too. Fantastic. Are there many countries with permanent offices in Montreal, like Brazil?
Actually, there are. Currently, there are 121 countries, member states with permanent delegations. Not all of them, of course, sit on the council. As I said, the council has just 36 members, and the council is the permanent, the permanent governing body of the organization. But these delegations and these representatives who do not sit on the council, they are, of course, members of the organization, and they are participants of the meetings of the council and the committees as observers, and they are an important contribution.
Sorry, no voting then, so they just observe.
That's right. When they're not sitting, they have votes on the assembly because they're all members of the assembly. But when they're not sitting on the council, they do not have votes. They are observers. They can speak if they so wish, but not vote, as you say.
Okay, and Brazil has been a voting member in the council since the start.
Since 1997. That's a long way.
It goes a long way, and it goes to show the importance of this council seat.
That's right. And next year we'll have elections. As I said, the assembly meets every 3 years, and every 3 years the assembly elects by majority the members of the council. So next year we'll have elections. So we'll have to be working hard next year to get Brazil re-elected to the council again.
And we shall, of course. And Colonel Mauro, who you've mentioned, is coming back to Brazil, and he's going to be our commander. So that's great.
Right.
He comes
You
with
see
the.
how lucky I am to have people with me here?
Yeah, how lucky we are, we're getting him.
Traffic.
And how do you assess the participation of Brazilians in ICAO panels? Is Brazil well regarded? Are we considered a strong member like?
Most certainly. You know, so we've been, again, sitting on the commission and on committees for decades. And our experts have been making a very substantive contribution. You know, unfortunately, there are not many developing countries with you know, with the technical capacity in the whole range of issues that are covered at ICAO. Really, very few developing countries, unfortunately. And this you can easily see when you work here and to follow, you know, the work of the organization and the panels and the committees and even the council. You see that because they do not have the same technical capacity. At least they do not have the same technical capacity in the whole range of issues. They unfortunately are not as well positioned as we are to make a substantive contribution. So, and that's another, you know, we were talking about developing countries and the role of Brazil at ICAO, and that's another contribution we make because given the fact that we have such technical capacity, our presence in those technical bodies, in the panels, for example, that are really the guys who, you know, build SARPs and PANs from the scratch, right? From all the way to the council. Very technical issue that requires a lot of knowledge. Since they don't have this capacity. These panels and they tend to be too much concentrated on or on the interests and concerns and needs of developed countries. So Brazil's presence ensures that, or help at least ensure that the perspective and needs and concerns of developing countries, technically speaking, are addressed properly, are considered. So our capacity and competencies are important not only for Brazil, but only for bringing some, you know, balance, some representation in the workings of the organization.
Great. Before we go on to our last question, because we don't want to impose, we know you're very busy. We have here a question from Paulo. How many Brazilians are currently working at the office in Montreal? And a pandemic kind of question, do you work remotely or do you have to go to the office in person?
No, I do go to the office. I'm not in the office now because it's a little bit late here. Not as late as in Brazil, though. You're working much harder than I am. But yes, we do. To start from the end of the question. Yes, I go to the office every day. So the delegation is working in the traditional, in the old style way. We have, of course, been through a special regime when the pandemic here was serious. Now the situation in Montreal is certainly under control. Everyone has been vaccinated, so we have been safely working in the delegation. As to the question of how many Brazilians you have in the organization, you know, you have to make a difference between people working in the secretariat. We have spoken very little about the secretariat, but the secretariat is the bureaucracy, in the good sense of the word, is the set of officials of all levels that work for the organization and assist member states. So that's what we call the secretariat of the organization. So you have to make a distinction between those that work as officials of the organization and those that are what we call secondees. Secondees are people that are from national governments, but that are temporarily lent, if you want, to the organization to work in a given position. So on the first group of the officials of the organization that are Brazilian nationals, we currently have 10 individuals. Uh, and this number is not, decided by coincidence. There is a formula, if you want, to define the number of employees of the organization, of officials of the organization, of different nationalities. It's a complicated formula that will tell you whether a country is overrepresented, properly represented, or underrepresented in the organization in terms of number of employees of the organization of that particular nationality. In our case now, Brazil is overrepresented. There are more Brazilians working in the Secretariat than the formula would call for. Or would considers a country being properly represented, but we're working to have more. We're not happy. We want more Brazilians. There was a saying in Canada a long time ago when I first was posted here. The saying goes, "The world needs more Canada," and say the world needs more Brazil and Brazilians, I think.
Definitely. We can definitely contribute a lot with our experience in such a vast country, right? And what message could you leave for us, the controllers and pilots involved in aviation in Brazil?
Well, again, a very important question that gives me great pleasure in addressing. First of all, I think that you, controllers, and all our colleagues who are involved in civil aviation, you should be very proud of yourself. Unfortunately, sometimes Brazilians tend not to see clearly the reasons for their pride. And in this case, I assure you that you should be very proud. One, as I said, Brazil is a very important country in the organization. But secondly, and most importantly, air controllers and all those who are involved in aviation make this machinery happen, make this world go around. And controllers in Brazil have not a small job to undertake, to perform. It's, and you know more than I do, 22,000 square kilometers of airspace to control. And control not only for Brazil, but control for the international aviation. As you know, a good part of this space is, let's say, given to Brazil for Brazil to control, and that's quite a responsibility. And you do that in a fantastic manner that is very well recognized by the world. If it were not, we would not have such a large airspace to control. Again, it's not generosity, it's recognition of competence, of dedication. And this is a combination of course, of many factors. Infrastructure, of course, is important, and DSE has been, and Brazil has been investing on infrastructure and technology very much, as you know. But it's human capital. I mean, it's no use to have the latest computers, the latest technology, if you don't have people able to operate that technology, and people dedicated, motivated to do their jobs. So I do congratulate you on the work that controllers and again all those involved in aviation perform every day. And again, and I think this is quite clear especially for our controllers who have very, as you know, I'm not an air controller, but it doesn't take to be an air controller to know how tense, how difficult, how demanding this work can be. So you should be proud of yourselves. Aviation is about safety. So, it's no small feat that you help people get from one place to the other safely, back to their families, back to their, daily activities. But it's not small feat if you think of the importance, the relevance of aviation in development, in sustainable development in Brazil and worldwide. Just think about tourism, just think about cargo, just think about business. So if air controllers are not there, if the infrastructure is not there, these things simply won't happen. So keep doing the great work. Nobody can rely or should rely on his or her own current merits. Continue working, continue studying, continue dedicating yourselves. And by the way, I should have mentioned this in the beginning of our conversation. I do congratulate the Air Force for this effort in terms of training in mastering English. As we said, it's the lingua franca of the world, but aviation in particular. And the more proficient you are in English, the easier it is for you to communicate in English. The better you'll do your job, the safer passengers and airplanes will be, and the more aviation will grow, both in Brazil and abroad. So again, congratulations. Be proud of yourselves. Be proud of the people that the ICAO has sent to Montreal for decades and will continue to send. We have your interests and concerns in mind as we go about our daily jobs here. Be sure of that. Unfortunately, I cannot hear you.
I'm muted, sorry. Thank you for this very much for this interview. I've learned a lot. And we have some very interesting questions, but unfortunately our time is up because of the technical problems we had, so we won't be able to ask them. But remember, Colonel Mauro is coming to be our commander, and we can ask him more about the ICAO office. Thank you, everybody who is here, for your interest and your participation. Thank you, Brigadeiro Bertolino and Colonel Sicasio, for getting this interview. And above all, thank you for your time, Ambassador. It's been great learning from the wealth of knowledge that you bring.
My pleasure.
Okay.
All the best.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Have a great one.
You too.